Have you ever noticed how your avoidant ex always seems to text you right when you're finally moving on? Not too early, not too late, just when you've started to feel calm again. It's never a full conversation, it's just a short message. Hey, how have you been? Or just saw something that reminded me of you. Simple words, right? But somehow they hit deeper than you expect. Because when an avoidant ex texts you, it's rarely about the words, it's about the timing. It's about that quiet, strategic way they appear again, right after you've started to feel emotionally balanced. See, avoidant exes don't text for closure, they text to test the emotional waters, to check if you're still open, still responsive, still emotionally available. And they do it in the most casual way possible, because admitting they miss you would mean admitting vulnerability, something they're terrified of. Avoidants are wired to crave connection, but fear it at the same time. They want closeness, but the moment they feel it, they pull back. So when they lose someone who truly saw them, someone emotionally safe, consistent and grounding, it doesn't just fade away. That loss creates a quiet storm inside them. But instead of saying "I miss you," they send signals, disguised as friendly, harmless messages. They won't pour their heart out, but they'll drop subtle breadcrumbs, hoping you'll pick them up. Every text is like a small knock on your emotional door, and these messages always follow a pattern. They sound calm, detached, polite, even cold at times, but underneath that composure, they're full of unspoken tension, curiosity, longing and regret they don't know how to process. Deep down they just want to know one thing: do you still feel something for me? It's not about love, at least not right away, it's about emotional reassurance. They want to know that even after everything, they still matter to you, that the door isn't completely shut, because that small confirmation gives them comfort and control. And once you respond, even with a simple "Hey, I'm good," it soothes their anxiety. It tells them they haven't fully lost you. For a moment it quiets their guilt, eases their fear, and reawakens that hidden attachment they thought they buried. But here's the twist: they'll never admit it. They'll say it's just a friendly message. They'll act casual, like nothing ever happened, but every word they type is a reflection of what they're not brave enough to say out loud. Because avoidants don't express pain through words, they express it through behavior. And reaching out again, no matter how small the text, is their quiet confession. They're still hurting, they're still thinking, and they're still trying to feel safe enough to come closer. So if you've ever wondered, why did they text me now, or does this mean they still care, you're about to find out. In this video we're decoding the psychology behind those subtle, confusing, emotionally charged messages, the ones that seem casual but carry the meaning they'll never say out loud. By the end you'll know exactly what each type of text means, how to recognize the emotional state behind it, and how to respond in a way that keeps your peace while revealing their true feelings without saying a single word. Because when your avoidant ex texts you like this, it's never just a text, it's a confession they don't have the courage to make out loud. The first sign that your avoidant ex wants you back, even if they don't admit it, is when they send that simple, almost harmless-looking text: "Hey, how have you been?" It sounds innocent, but it's never just small talk. That message usually arrives when they sense you've emotionally detached, when your energy has shifted from chasing to calm. It's not about curiosity, it's about control. An avoidant ex doesn't reach out because they suddenly miss conversation. They reach out because the silence which once gave them safety now feels like distance they can't control. This is what psychologists call a soft check-in. It's their way of testing the emotional temperature, to see if you're still emotionally available, still thinking of them, still capable of giving them the reassurance they lost. Think about it. If they truly wanted closure, they'd say something deeper or more direct. But instead they send a surface-level message because it gives them emotional data without emotional risk. They don't have to be vulnerable, they just need to see if you respond. You'll notice the timing too. It's usually when you've started posting confidently, spending less energy on them, or when mutual friends subtly mention how well you're doing. That's when the message appears, short, calm, safe. "Hey, how are you?" Or "just saw something that reminded me of you." It's their attempt to re-enter your emotional space without committing to the discomfort of true connection. Avoidants are masters at appearing casual while seeking control. Their calm tone hides a lot of inner chaos. Behind that one text is a swirl of thoughts like, have they really moved on? Do they still think about me? If I text now, will they reply warmly or coldly? That soft check-in gives them answers without admitting they're asking. It's a low-risk move with a high emotional payoff, because if you respond kindly, it soothes their insecurity. But here's the truth most people miss: this text doesn't mean they've changed or healed. It's not about rebuilding the relationship yet, it's about emotional reassurance. The moment they feel that you still care, their anxiety eases. You've given them proof they still matter to you. That's the win they're looking for. So what should you do when this message arrives? The key is to see it for what it is, a test, not a confession. You don't have to ignore it, but respond with balance. Keep it brief, polite, and emotionally neutral. If they say, "Hey, how have you been?" you could reply, "Hey, I've been good. Hope everything's been going well for you too." That's calm, grounded and self-contained. No emotional chasing, no overexposure. When you respond like this, you do two powerful things: you show emotional confidence, and you remove their ability to control the dynamic. Avoidants crave stability, but fear being consumed. So when you show warmth without attachment, they feel your strength, and that's what magnetizes them. It triggers curiosity, not comfort. They realize they don't control your emotions anymore, and that's when their suppressed desire begins to surface. So remember, when they text, it's never just a text, it's their quiet confession that says, "I'm not over you," wrapped in the safest words they know. How you respond decides whether you fuel their old pattern, or make them finally face what losing you really means. The second sign that your avoidant ex wants you back, even if they'd never say it directly, is when they text you something that triggers an old memory. Maybe it's a random message like, "Just heard that song we used to listen to," or "Remember that cafe we used to go to." It looks harmless, but it's a quiet emotional breadcrumb, a way of reaching out without exposing their real feelings. When an avoidant sends a message tied to a shared moment, it's never by accident. Avoidants are deeply nostalgic, but they use nostalgia as a shield rather than an expression. Bringing up a memory allows them to re-enter emotional closeness safely, because they're not talking about you and them now, they're talking about something that once was. This is how they manage the risk of rejection. They can test if you still feel warmth toward them, without having to say, "I miss you." You might notice how specific their references are. It's not a general "how's life" text, it's something that only the two of you would understand. That's because it's designed to reopen that emotional door, the one they closed themselves but can't stop looking at. If they truly didn't care, they'd have no reason to revisit the emotional past. But when they bring up that one inside joke or that place you both loved, it's their subconscious way of saying, "That part of my life still means something to me." Here's the psychology behind it. Avoidants associate emotional memories with safety, not expression. When they lose someone who made them feel seen, their mind doesn't crave new memories, it replays old ones. So when you get that "just heard our song" text, it's not casual, it's their internal conflict spilling out. Part of them wants distance, but another part misses the emotional security you gave them. That single text is their way of feeling connected again, even if they can't bring themselves to admit it. Now let's talk about how you should interpret and respond to it. When you receive a message like that, it's tempting to read it as a sign of rekindled love, but it's more about emotional checking than romantic intent. They want to see how you'll respond. Will you jump back into emotional warmth? Will you bring up old feelings? Or will you remain grounded? Your reaction gives them that information instantly. So the best response here is calm acknowledgement, not emotional overinvestment. For example, if they text, "Just heard that song we used to play in the car," you could say, "Yeah, that song brings back some good memories." That response is balanced. You're not cold, but you're also not reopening emotional dependency. You're showing maturity, that you can hold a memory fondly without being pulled back into the past. This approach does something powerful. It shows your avoidant ex that you no longer need emotional permission from them to feel steady. You can acknowledge connection without attachment. For an avoidant, that's disarming, because it breaks their old pattern where they held emotional control. When they see that they can't stir you the way they used to, curiosity replaces comfort. That calm reaction makes them reflect. If they've moved on and can still speak kindly, "Maybe I was the one who ran too soon." So when your avoidant ex sends that memory-triggering message, see it for what it is, not a random text, but a quiet attempt to reconnect without risking vulnerability. It's not about the memory itself, it's about what the memory represents: safety, closeness, and the version of you that made them feel understood. The moment you respond with calm confidence, you flip the script. You remind them that you're no longer waiting, but you're also not bitter, and that's the energy that makes an avoidant truly miss what they lost. The third sign that your avoidant ex wants you back, even if they hide it behind logic, is when they send a message that sounds purely casual or practical. It might look like, "Did you ever fix that car issue?" or "Hey, what was the name of that restaurant we went to?" At first glance it feels like a harmless question, something that doesn't carry emotional weight. But this kind of message isn't really about information, it's about access. It's their subtle way of reopening communication without admitting they miss you. Avoidants often use curiosity as emotional camouflage. Asking a small practical question gives them a reason to reach out while pretending it's not personal. It allows them to test your openness without showing their own vulnerability. This way they can start a conversation without saying, "I've been thinking about you." The logic in the question becomes their emotional safety net. If you don't reply warmly, they can always pretend it didn't mean anything. But deep down they're not curious about the answer, they're curious about you. You'll usually notice these messages arrive after a period of silence. Maybe you haven't spoken for weeks or months and suddenly they need to know something random that could have easily been Googled or ignored. For example, they might say, "Hey, what was that series we watched last winter?" Or "Do you remember the name of that friend from your office?" These details are just excuses. The real message behind them is, "Are you still open to me?" This indirect approach is how avoidants regulate their anxiety. They want to feel connected again, but in a way that doesn't risk rejection or emotional confrontation. Psychologically, this moment is very revealing. Avoidants are drawn to stability and safety, and when they sense that your emotional energy has shifted, that you're no longer chasing, no longer emotionally available in the same way, their subconscious starts searching for low-risk ways to restore that connection. So instead of saying, "I miss our connection," they build a bridge with practicality. That one small question is their emotional radar, designed to detect whether your heart is still open to them. Now when you receive a message like this, your first instinct might be confusion. You might think, "Why are they asking this now?" That confusion is part of their plan. It keeps the emotional balance in their favor, but the power lies in recognizing what this message really represents. It's not about the thing they asked, it's about the emotional data they're trying to gather. Are you still responsive? Still kind? Still attached? The tone and timing of your reply give them all those answers instantly. The best way to respond is with emotional clarity and balance. You don't need to overanalyze or over-explain. If they text, "Did you ever fix that car issue?" a simple neutral reply like, "Yeah, got it sorted out a while ago. Hope you're doing well" is enough. It's polite but emotionally grounded. You acknowledge their question, but don't offer extra emotional engagement. You don't invite deeper conversation, but you don't appear bitter or closed either. This kind of response does something powerful. It keeps you in emotional control. Instead of letting them use practicality to re-enter your space, you gently close that door while still standing with calm composure. Avoidants crave control over emotional timing. When you reply calmly, without chasing or oversharing, it breaks that control. They realize they can no longer re-enter your world on their terms. That realization often stirs a deep emotional response. They begin to miss the comfort of being seen by you without fear. So when your avoidant ex sends that small casual text that looks like a question but feels like a test, see it for what it is, an emotional invitation disguised as logic. They're trying to feel your presence without confessing their longing. Your calm, balanced reply reminds them that you've grown beyond their emotional games, and that subtle strength is exactly what makes them want you back even more. The fourth sign that your avoidant ex wants you back, even if they'd never say it, is when they reach out weeks or even months later, calm and subtle, after a long stretch of silence. It's not impulsive or random this time, it's usually something reflective, like "I was just thinking about how peaceful things were with you," or "Saw that place we used to go to, hope you're doing okay." The tone is soft, the timing deliberate, and beneath it lies one clear motive: the silence has finally started to feel heavier than their fear of closeness. Avoidants often convince themselves they're better off alone. They pull away, telling themselves they just need space, freedom, or peace. And for a while that narrative holds. But over time, the silence they once needed for emotional safety starts to turn into emotional discomfort. When no one is checking in, when no message lights up their phone, when the noise of distraction fades, that's when they start noticing the emptiness. The absence of you becomes louder than your presence ever was. This late reach out is their version of "I miss you," but spoken in a language only avoidants understand: restraint. They don't text with emotional urgency, they text with emotional control. It's a message crafted to appear thoughtful, balanced and casual. Something like, "Hey, I hope life's been good to you lately," or "I was thinking about how much calmer things used to feel back then." To an outsider, it might sound simple, but to someone who knows their emotional patterns, it's a big deal, because for avoidants, vulnerability comes in fragments, not floods. Logically, they send this kind of message when they've processed the initial relief of space and are now confronting the emotional void. Their nervous system, which once felt overwhelmed by connection, begins to crave the very safety you used to provide. The calm tone of the message hides the storm behind it, a mix of regret, curiosity, and self-reflection. They're not just checking how you are, they're checking if there's still a bridge left to cross. Now when you receive this message, it can stir old emotions. You might think, maybe they've changed, or maybe they finally realize what they lost. But it's important to understand that this reach out isn't always a full emotional awakening. It's the beginning of realization, the stage where their avoidance starts clashing with their attachment. They're reaching out not to start over immediately, but to see if the connection still has emotional oxygen. So how should you respond? The power here lies in your tone. Avoid reacting with either excitement or coldness. A balanced, emotionally mature reply works best. Something like, "Hey, thanks for checking in, I've been doing well, hope you're doing okay too." This kind of response communicates emotional growth. It neither rejects nor invites too much, it holds calm confidence. That balance unsettles and attracts the avoidant mind, because it shows you're no longer emotionally dependent on their validation. By replying calmly, you're not rewarding their delayed realization with instant comfort, you're making them face it. You're showing that the world didn't pause when they left, and that emotional independence creates the kind of quiet magnetism that avoidance can't resist. It forces them to reflect deeper, not on your absence, but on the stability they lost when they walked away. So when they text after months of silence with that calm, thoughtful tone, don't mistake it for small talk. It's not just a message. It's a sign their avoidance is cracking, their walls are thinning, and they're finally starting to feel the emotional weight of losing someone who once felt like home. The fifth sign that your avoidant ex wants you back, even if they'd never say it directly, is when they reach out weeks or even months later, calm and reflective, after a long stretch of silence. It's not impulsive this time. It's not the casual "hey" or "just saw something that reminded me of you." It's something softer, more grounded, like "I hope you've been doing okay," or "I was just thinking about you the other day." This text usually comes when they've finally run out of distractions, when the silence, which once felt peaceful, has become too heavy to bear. Avoidants often convince themselves that distance equals freedom. When they first pull away, they feel relief. Their nervous system relaxes. The absence of emotional demand feels like control again. But over time that very silence begins to echo, and what once brought calm starts to bring discomfort. The peace they thought they wanted turns into loneliness, and the space they fought for becomes the reminder of what they lost. That's when they text again, not in emotional panic, but in emotional reflection. It's their late-stage realization moment, when they finally allow themselves to feel what they've been suppressing. The text is carefully worded, emotionally safe, but layered with unspoken longing. They might mention something nostalgic, or simply ask how you're doing, but notice the difference in energy. It's not light or playful, it's introspective. It carries the tone of someone who's been thinking more than they'd admit. Logically, this happens because the avoidance cycle is built around delayed emotion. They don't feel loss immediately, they process backwards, first the relief, then the emptiness, then the regret. And this reach out represents that turning point where their emotional wall starts cracking. They've had time to self-soothe, to regain control, and now that their defenses have softened, the emotional reality sets in. You're gone, and they might have pushed away something irreplaceable. At this stage, their message isn't about reigniting the relationship yet, it's about testing the emotional waters again, but this time from a place of quiet vulnerability. It's their subconscious attempt to reconnect without exposing their regret directly. Deep down they're hoping for one thing: reassurance that you still care, even a little, because that helps them manage the guilt and uncertainty that's been building beneath their calm exterior. Now when this message arrives, it's easy to feel a rush of hope. You might think, maybe they finally understand, or maybe this means they've changed. But it's important to pause and read between the lines. Their message isn't proof of transformation, it's proof of realization. It means the silence finally started talking back to them. And that's progress, but not the destination. So how should you respond? Gently, but firmly. Avoid mirroring their nostalgia, or rushing to fill the emotional gap. Instead, reply with grounded warmth, something like, "Hey, thanks for checking in. I've been doing well. Hope things have been good on your end too." That kind of message shows emotional stability. It's open enough to acknowledge their effort, but strong enough to maintain your boundaries. When you respond this way, you create a powerful psychological shift. You don't reward their delayed realization with emotional reassurance, you make them sit with it. And that's what deepens their reflection. Avoidants fear being consumed, but they're drawn to emotional calm, and when they see that you've healed, that your world didn't collapse without them, it triggers both admiration and a quiet ache. They start to realize that the peace they were chasing actually existed with you, not away from you. So when they text you after weeks or months with that calm, reflective tone, know this: it's not random, and it's not just politeness. It's a quiet confession that the silence didn't free them, it exposed them. They're not just reaching out to say hello, they're reaching out because they finally understand what they ran from. And whether you respond or not, they'll never forget the emotional weight of that realization. When your avoidant ex finally reaches out, it's tempting to read every word like a hidden code, to wonder if this is the moment they've finally changed or realized what they lost. But here's the truth: avoidants rarely communicate their emotions in words. They show it through timing, behavior, and tone. Their texts aren't random, they're windows into a mind that's been quietly wrestling with regret. If you've ever received one of these messages, don't rush to decode it emotionally. Take a breath and see it for what it is: a sign of internal conflict, not always a promise of reconnection. Sometimes their text means, "I'm thinking about you but still scared to come close." And that's okay. It doesn't make them evil or manipulative, it just means they're finally facing feelings they've spent years avoiding. Your job isn't to fix them or read their silence like a love letter, it's to stay centered in your peace. Respond with grace, not emotional investment. Show that you've grown beyond the pattern that once controlled you, because when you maintain your emotional balance, you stop being a source of comfort they can dip into, and become a person they truly have to reckon with losing. That's where your power lies. You're not proving your worth by how fast you reply or how kind your words sound. You're proving it through your calm, your boundaries, and your ability to stay grounded in self-respect. So next time that unexpected message appears on your screen, don't just ask, "Why did they text me?" Ask instead, "What does my response teach them about the kind of access they now have to me?" Because when you master that, you stop chasing closure and start commanding clarity. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit subscribe, drop a comment sharing your experience, and watch till the end. Your next step toward emotional freedom starts right here.